Welcome back, Spurs fans, to the Scott Hepler Football Channel. Today, we're doing our preview ponderings, where we're going to look at the upcoming match between Newcastle United and Tottenham Hotspurs on Sunday, October 17th. So, international break just ended. All the players are coming back. Some of them in better shape than others. But we've had a couple weeks off, allowed the teams to allow their national players to go play and allow those that weren't on national teams to maybe get healthy and put in some work and try to work out some things that have been issues, especially for the Spurs. I'm coming back from vacation, been off for 2 weeks, gone for a couple weeks during the international break, and I'm getting back into the swing of things, so it's great. So today we're going to look at the upcoming match between Tottenham and Newcastle. We're going to look at the teams, their positioning, where they're at in the table, how they've been playing, what some key issues are that for each team, and then just kind of talk about what we think is going to happen within this match. So to start off, we're going to talk about the Spurs' position in the table, and that's 8th place. Sitting there with 12 points, 4 points off of first place, which doesn't sound like that bad. But when you look at how Spurs have been playing and then those teams above Spurs, how they've been playing, that 4 points actually seems like a pretty significant gap. And that's early in the season, so that's kind of worrisome. But when we look at Newcastle, they're sitting in 19th place, one from the bottom. They're only above Norwich. And so they've gotten off to a very poor start this season. They only have 3 points. They're sitting there with -8 goal differential, so there's not a lot positive working for them. With the exception of, they were just bought this week. So they have new owners. Now that's not going to really affect this match or what's going on within this match, but what does that look like for them going into the future? What's that look like for what these owners can do for them financially, going into the transfer markets, specifically January, and does that help them stay within the Premier League? Because right now you could argue they're almost guaranteed to be regulated with the way they've been playing. Now, do they have the ability to turn that around? There's still a lot of season left to play, yes, but with what they've shown, you can almost argue that between them and Norwich, it's like who's going to be the bottom of the barrel right now at the end of the season. So they've gotten off to a very poor start. When we look at Spurs over their last 5 Premier League matches, they've won 2, lost 3. Now the one positive to take out of that is they won their last match prior to the international break. So they got to go into the break with at least some positivity and some positive momentum moving into the international break, and then hopefully can work to carry that in coming out of the break. A couple things to point out with the Spurs: they have the fewest goals scored of any team in the top 10 right now. And that's not a good stat to be, especially when a number of these other teams have double-digit goals and Spurs don't even have half of that. And so it's really not a positive thing for the Spurs right now, is their attacking and goal-scoring ability. Another thing with the Spurs, they're tied for the most goals conceded in the top 12 of the Premier League. So even the teams below, they're doing better in not giving up as many goals, or at least giving up the same amount as Tottenham. So, if you go all the way down to from 12 up to number 1, Tottenham is tied for the most goals conceded. And that's not a positive thing either. I mean, everyone was thinking, this defense is doing much better. Things are much better with the first 3 matches. All 3 shutouts. We won. But since then, kind of things have twisted around and almost done a 180. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. How is Nuno going to align this defense, and who is he going to play regularly to provide some consistency and quality within this team? And, I argue the options are kind of thin, so there's not a lot of options in my opinion, but I'm sure other people would disagree, but that's okay. When we look at Newcastle United, in the last 5 matches, they have 3 draws and 2 losses. Now, one thing about those 3 draws, all 3 of the draws were against teams that were in 15th place or below. So they're struggling against even the lower end teams just to get a draw. And where, their losses came against 2 of the upper level teams. So recently, and they're just not playing great. There's nothing great about them right now. They're also tied for the most goals conceded in the Premier League, and so their defense is really not doing them any favors right now, and that's just something that maybe Spurs can take advantage of, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. In the most 5 recent Premier League matches between Spurs and Newcastle United, Spurs have 2 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. So it's not lopsided in any way. If anything, it probably favors Spurs a little bit because you take that, and there's only 1 loss out of that bunch. But all those matches are, even the wins are 1-win matches. So it's not like we dominate when we win against the Newcastle, at least in the last 5 matches that we played them in the Premier League. One of the things when we look at Newcastle too is they really like to play with a heavy back line. So they either go 3 at the back or 5, anywhere between 3 to 5 at the back. And then they pack that midfield. So that's one thing they do very heavily is pack in, protect first, and then worry about scoring later. When they do run their formations, they maybe have 1 or 2 people up top, and that's it. Everyone else is in the midfield or behind. And so breaking down Newcastle is potentially going to be difficult for Spurs in this match. So one of the things that could be an issue are injuries and or suspensions. Looking at the Spurs, we have some issues still carrying over even from the previous international break with Steven Bergwijn, Ryan Sessegnon, Ben Davies is out, and then also Matt Doherty picked up an injury during this international break. And I was hoping to put this video out a little earlier, but I guess it's kind of good that I didn't, because right when I was getting ready to put it out, got the news that Son and Hill are out with COVID. And that's not good. So now we've added even more to the list. It's kind of like when we came back from the international break last time. We had a long list of people through injuries and COVID-related issues. Well, we're back at it again. When you look at Newcastle, their only injury that they've had to deal with recently is Callum Wilson. Now, there is a good chance that he's going to be back. Now, whether he starts or not, we don't know. But they're saying that there's a strong possibility he may be back in the lineup for this match against the Spurs. So if that's the case, they have 0 injury issues on the table. And he is someone that will provide them some ability and potentially cause us issues. Look at the issue with Son and Hill specifically, and I want you to ponder upon this. Knowing that Son and Hill will miss probably in the next 3 matches, that includes the midweek match next week in the Europa Conference League, should we be bringing in some of the U23 and U18 players to get some minutes? If not in the Premier League, at least in that Europa Conference League match coming up. I mean, already I think we're not in great shape in the Europa Conference League, but we're looking really thin right now. And I know they said Steven Bergwijn's kind of a possibility, but I don't think he's really fit and ready to play since he's still recovering from that injury. I don't think he'd be ready even for the midweek match. I think the earliest he would be back, if he's not back and maybe on the bench this week, is going to be next weekend. And so think about that a little, ponder upon it. And as we go through and discuss certain points and whatnot, if something strikes a chord or makes you start to think about something, hit that like button. You don't have to agree with me or, agree with what I say or the point, but if it gets the wheels turning, get you thinking a little bit, hey, let me know that I'm saying some things that hit home, and hit that like button for me. A little thumbs up there. I'd appreciate that. So some of the keys I look at for Newcastle is their attacking play. As I said, they have a significant goal differential deficit, and they've struggled scoring goals. Although as of late, they've not been shut out in their last 5 matches. So even when they've lost or drawn, they've put up a goal or two here and there. So they're not lighting the world on fire, but they're starting to come out of that early season funk where they weren't scoring really at all. And some of those key things, I think, like I was talking about the formations, is before Callum got hurt, they were running a 2-man front with Callum Wilson. And I imagine that if he starts, that's what they'll go to. If not, they're only going to have one person up front, and that's probably going to be St. Maxim, who is their leading goal scorer and assist leader. He does it all. If Wilson's not there, all we got to do is shut down one guy, and it pretty much shuts down the team for Newcastle. If Wilson's there, that provides another threat. But, that's one of the things is, will they have more of a mindfulness of getting out on the front foot if Wilson's able to play, and knowing that we're thin. We're thin, especially in the attacking sense, with all the injuries and issues that we have with COVID and whatnot. If anything, we've got more than enough people to fill the defending roles. It's the people up front that we're really struggling with. And you got to argue one of definitely our best offensive player of the season, which is Son. He's out. So what are they going to do attacking wise to take advantage of our weakness at this point and try to push the point home of they're not going to be as afraid of us because a lot fewer people for us to attack with and put them at risk, in my opinion. And so one of the things I think they need to do is focus on, if they have Callum with St. Maximum, they can work those channels trying to get in behind us. And also, they need to pressure the Spurs pretty high up, because we're going to have some difficulty probably, and we have it when we have our better players. We're going to have even more difficulty working the ball out now, working out of the back and such. So that's one of the keys to them, I think, is going to be, can they push up? Can they apply pressure? And will they have Callum Wilson where they can apply pressure up front from 2 players instead of just 1? The other thing I think Newcastle, a point of interest for them, is their defense. While we're going to be somewhat subdued in our ability to attack, we still have, arguably, and I know people won't say that that's probably true right now, but arguably one of the best strikers in the world that's going to be available. And so their defense has been very poor, to say the least. And that's something they're going to have to make sure is sound, even with our lack of quality in numbers in personnel up front. So that's something they're going to have to focus on. When we look at Tottenham, I think it's our defense that's going to be something that's going to be put to the test too, especially if Callum and St. Maximum are there. If there's only one person to shut down, I think we're probably going to shut them down pretty well. If we have to focus on both of them, it's been proven pacey, strong forwards cause issues, especially if Dyer or Sanchez is involved in the center back positioning. And some of this is going to come down to how Nuno sets up the team. Is he going to be more defensive minded than offensive minded, especially missing the quality offensive players that we are? I think maybe so. I think that might be the way he goes. But that's going to be a key for us. Can we hold up if they have those 2 forwards up front hold up with the pace, hold up with the physicality if Dyer and or Sanchez are in there. Because when you look at Romero, he played the full match. Emerson played the full match midweek. So now Sanchez didn't play his last international match, but in my opinion, he still shouldn't be a second or third option at center back. He's probably fourth or fifth at best, in my opinion, as an option at center back. So the question is, who's going to be in there? Do we have to rely on Sanchez and Dyer? If we do, I'm really concerned. The other thing, it's kind of mirror image of each team. How are we going to attack Newcastle? Who's going to, when they are in the defense, they're going to just hunker down and put 10 guys in front of you from about their 30-yard line back. And you got to work through it. And we have even fewer options for creativity than we did when Son and Hill were available. So this is going to be a very big challenge for the Spurs. Frankly, in my opinion, I would prefer us to look for options to counter, because we should still have Mora and some pace and things like that. But it's just, how are we going to get through there? I mean, even with Kane, we've seen it in 3 or 4 matches now. He's just not been himself in the Premier League. He's been very static. He's not had quite the energy, I guess you could say, that he had last season playing in the Premier League and against the better teams, the higher quality teams. And Newcastle would be arguably not one of those higher quality teams. So he should be able to do more. But he's even struggled against some of those teams that he should have done well against. And I mean, when we look at the Arsenal match, their back line was a mess leading up to the Spurs match. And what did we do? We made them look like world beaters. They just shut us down, made us look like fools. And I think probably one of the things that came out of that maybe Newcastle can learn from is, when you put us under pressure, especially push out and put us under pressure, we're going to have a very difficult time moving that ball up and forward. And that's what happened against Arsenal. So I think we're going to really have to figure out how we're going to get our goals. And that's going to be something, again, with Nuno, how he's going to set up the team. I think there's a couple options we can do. There's a couple ways. And we'll talk about that in my predictive ponderings, where we go through the lineups and such. We got, 5 matches over the next 2 weeks to finish out October. That's about a match every 3 days, 3 or so days. So we're going to have a lot of matches coming up, enough over the next 2 weeks that we really need our squad to be as full as possible. And we need to get some of these guys back off the injury list. There's nothing we can do to hurry up the COVID thing. They're just going to have to be out for 3 matches. It's going to end up being 3 matches now. Son and Hill. We're in some dire straits here. Looking at everything, if this issue with the Hill and Son wouldn't have happened, I would have given us a reasonable chance to come out of this with a win. Even with Callum Wilson, if he comes back and plays. Without Son and Hill, I honestly think our best result is going to be a draw. And that's what I'm going to say. A 1-1 draw. I don't think they'll shut us out. I don't think we'll shut them out. And I'm expecting Callum Wilson to play when I'm saying this. If he doesn't play, I think we have a good shot at a shutout. We may be able to sneak a 1-0 win or 0-0 draw. But it's going to be very interesting. I do not see a win here. I do not see in any way, shape, or form how we're going to win at their place with the available players that we have and the quality that we have sitting in the injury/suspension/COVID list. Like I said before, I would have given us a narrow win if we had Son and Hill available. and that's if they would have actually played. So I don't see this going as a win for us. I'm going to say 1-1 draw. I'm going to be optimistic. Okay, the last time I was optimistic, it bit me in the butt and we got whipped by Arsenal. I think if nothing else, we can probably hold them to 1 or none. I don't think if they score 2, it's over. We've lost. That's all I can say. We will not score 2 goals against them. Not with the availability of players that we have. And we're looking at other players like Lo Celso. He played 90 full minutes in this last international match. He was great in international play again, as he usually is, because they play him very differently than the Spurs do. And, well, not just him. The whole setup is different. The whole way the team operates and everything's different. But I don't think he's a 90-minute guy because he just played in midweek. So he's available off the bench maybe, but that's it. Royale, I think he's probably a guy off the bench too. Romero, he can start. He's a center back. They don't run as much. They don't put in as much distance and stuff. And I think if Nuno does it well, sets up the team well, he can protect him and save his, keep his legs fresh for the entire match. But those are my thoughts on this upcoming match and kind of the issues and things that I see and the positives, which there weren't a lot. But let me know what you all think down in the comments, and come on, you Spurs!